I'm Don Knudson, and I'm here to introduce an interview with my dad, Clarence, on his 75th birthday. And so what we'll be hearing are some of his reflections and memories of his life of 75 years. The interviewer is Gloria Swanson, who will be sharing questions and trying to help stimulate him in his memory. And so I hope you enjoy the film.
You said you had a nickname, Clarence. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, there was some people that lived north of us, and they were Swedes.
Okay.
And the one kid, couldn't say Clarence, and so it come out something like Cluley or something like that.
Okay.
And so the kids in school teased him. And by golly, that nickname stuck. So now it's Cooley.
Okay.
For years and years, it was Cooley.
Okay, and so you were called that in school?
In school,
okay.
All over the place.
Okay, okay. You still have some friends that call you that once in a while?
Back there, they all do.
Where is back there?
All around Salem, north
okay.
of Salem.
Okay.
Northeast of Salem.
All right.
Yeah.
Now you have some memories about your grandparents.
Oh,
Can you share some stories, what their names were?
Oh, my dad's name was Knudson. And my mother's dad was named Jonas Olson, to begin with.
Okay.
And there was more Jonas Olsons around the country, so he just changed his last name to Lundgren.
How do you spell that? Do you know?
Lundgren.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's Lundgren now.
All right.
And both sets of my grandparents lost their farms when they were in their 60s.
Mm.
And so they were just farmed out, between the kids.
Okay.
And it was a sad thing.
Okay. So in their old age, they lived with different members of the family.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
And
say it was a sad thing. What was?
Yeah, sometimes they would overhear some of their kids saying, "Well, they stayed with us now for 3 months. Now it's your turn."
Oh.
And so they got feeling that they weren't wanted.
Okay.
You know how that goes.
Uh-huh. Do you remember anything about your grandparents' home?
Oh, sure.
When you were, can you describe it any way, or what you enjoyed?
My dad's dad, he had a great big, the house was a big 2.5-story house, square house. And they had, how many kids? 10, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. And my mom's dad had just an ordinary, country house, home, It was a 2-story too. But it was just one of those sprawling things you see,
Okay.
see around the country with a porch on it.
Okay.
On the south side.
Okay.
Well, the south and the west side, both. South and west side, there was a porch.
How many children did they have?
4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you go there as a child and visit, or as a young person?
No, well, my grandpa on my mother's side, they both lost their farms at about the same time,
Okay.
And one of the uncles lived on my dad's farm, and rented from the insurance company for a number of years.
Mm.
And we was on my mother's dad's farm
Okay.
for a few years. And my dad, he got so shook up about them losing his farm that he wasn't going to buy any land. He says it isn't worth it.
Mm.
So he didn't buy any land until he was about 60 years old.
Mm. Now, did they lose the farms during the Depression years then,
yeah,
or?
sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They bought a 40, each one of them bought a 40, and then they mortgaged the home land,
Mm-hmm.
and then it all went.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything special about your grandmothers that you remember? Like what they cooked or what they looked like?
Well, my mom's mother had died about the time that I was born
Okay,
of breast cancer.
okay.
In those days, it was a death sentence.
Mhm.
And my dad's mother, she was hale and hearty till she burned to death, you might say.
Oh, how did that
Well, she
happen?
caught fire, cooking in the house, and she ran outside and oofta oofta, like these Norwegians say, and run down the sidewalk, and the neighbor grabbed her and wrestled her down and put the fire out.
Mm.
And she lived about 3 days then, and then she passed away too.
Mm.
And she was about 67, 68. My dad's dad had diabetes. My grandfather on my dad's side had diabetes, and one leg, started to fester and it wouldn't heal, and the doctor told him then finally that, boy, he says, we have to take off that leg or else you're going to die. And he says, well, I'd rather die with both legs, and that's what he did.
Mm.
Yeah. And I remember the dirty 30s real well,
Okay, what were they about?
about dust and dirt. I remember one time out across the road there from home, and I was burning thistles, and a windstorm come up and you couldn't see nothing. You couldn't see, in front of your face even.
Mm.
And I thought, well, the fence, it's got to be this direction. So I walked towards that direction and found the fence, and then I followed the fence home. So that's the way that went. And on November 11th, about, I think it was 1933, Sunday morning, why, there was a black cloud in the west, and Daddy looked at it and he says, boy, he says, it looks like it's going to rain. So we went to church, and it wasn't rain, it was a dust storm. And that was the worst one I ever seen.
Mm.
That lasted all day too.
How old were you?
Well, in 33, I'd be 12 years old.
Okay. What effect did that have on the farm?
Well, as far as us kids, we didn't worry about it because we had food and clothes, and the landlord sure didn't want to kick you off because there was nobody else to farm if nobody wanted to farm. So people just lived on the farm and ate whatever there was. Huh? Oh, on my grandpa's farm there was kind of a creek, that went through the pasture, and every year, why, these Indians would migrate up, and then stop at that one certain place, and then they'd walk up and beg for milk and eggs and stuff like that. But that's what they'd been doing for hundreds of years, and it was still there. And Grandpa and Grandma didn't care, if they wanted to park there, okay. And they didn't hurt nobody. They just begged for milk and eggs and stuff to eat.
Mm. And your grandma and grandpa gave it to them?
Sure.
Mm.
Yeah. And I don't know that the people were kind of afraid of them for some reason or other. They were just different, I guess. And the people didn't like the Indians. They were afraid of them.
Mm-hmm.
What about the guy that came for supper with a gun?
Huh?
The guy that came for supper with a gun?
That sounds like a good story.
That's a good story. That was when I was about 16 years old and working for a neighbor down the road a ways. And the boys were home, and it was noon, and had their dinner, and there was this one guy coming with a backpack, you know, walked in and he says, boy, I'm awful hungry. He said, Ma says, we got plenty of food. You can sit down and eat if you want to. You know, because there was always hobos walking up and down the road, you know, so that was nothing new. And he sat there and he just wolfed that food down, I guess, just like, you know, it was his first meal almost. And he kept feeling in his pocket, Ma said anyway. And after he left, he went down the road and Ma says, he had a gun in his pocket. And Dad says, nah, he didn't have nothing. Yes, I know he had a gun, she says. So he called the sheriff, you know, and the sheriff come out there, and Dad, I suppose, must have told him what road he went on, you know, and he went down there, and sure enough, the guy was walking down the road, and he stopped and he says, do you want a lift? Yeah, the guy says, where are you going? Oh, to Montrose. Well, you're in luck, that's just where I'm going too, the sheriff said. And he went around, circling around down there, and got the guy lost and wound up in Salem. And the guy was wanted for something, for robbery or whatever. And there was a little prize money too, I guess, that Dad had to split, you know, with the sheriff. So that was something kind of different. That was about 34, I suppose, 35.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you describe your mother for me? What was she like?
My mother? She was a workaholic outside.
Oh, outside.
Outside. She wanted to work outside.
Oh.
She could milk cows faster than anybody.
Wow.
Yeah.
How tall was she?
Oh, I suppose about 5'6", maybe, something like that.
Do you look like her?
Not exactly, I don't think. No.
More like your father?
I'm more like my uncle, I think, Wally.
Okay.
You know, Mom's brother.
All right.
Yeah. And I guess Dad too. Everybody says I look like him, so I don't know.
What else did she do outside besides milk cows?
Well, she did chores, you know. She just loved it outside. And if the cows got out, why, she was chasing them.
Did she have a large garden?
Oh yeah, always. Yeah.
What did she grow in her garden?
Well, Swiss chard, cucumbers, and carrots, and beets, and you name it. Something that they call citron. I don't know if you've ever seen them.
No.
They were about like that, and like a watermelon.
Oh.
And then they made pickles, you know, just wonderful pickles out of them.
What color was the citron?
Green,
Green. Okay.
green, yeah, striped green.
So did she ever go inside the house and cook and clean, or?
Oh yeah, sure. She had to do that once in a while.
What was the favorite recipe that she made that you liked? If you could have it
Well,
today, what would you want that your
well,
mother cooked?
You know, there's all kinds of sweet dishes, you know. Clams, pulp, grit. And then my grandpa too, you know, Grandpa London, he was a great guy with the kids.
Oh, okay.
He loved the kids. Rode horseback on his knee and all that good stuff.
Uh,
Yeah.
did you ever get to do that?
No, I was a little bit old, you know, but the younger brothers always did.
Okay.
And he made stuff for us, you know. He'd make a sled and made skis,
Oh.
and he was just kind of a jack of all trades.
Hmm.
I guess that's what he did in Sweden too.
So he came from Sweden.
Oh yeah, both sets of my grandparents come from the old country.
And then,
One set from Sweden and the other set from Norway.
okay. And they settled in South Dakota right away?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you know why?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Hmm.
No idea. But they all had big dreams of going back to the old country when they got rich, you know, but they never got rich, and then in the end they lost their farms.
No.
Really
And,
sad.
What do you
Yeah.
remember about your father?
Well, he was a good boss.
Okay. Sounds like he made you work, huh?
Oh yeah, we all worked. Yeah, when us boys got older, you know, why then he'd work, you know, there was plenty of help with 5 boys around, you know. And he'd work on the road a lot of times, you know, building roads and hauling stuff with truck. He bought himself an old truck so he'd haul cattle to Sioux Falls and did things like that. What did you say?
I was just wondering about your smoking, the first time you smoked.
Oh, so you smoked the first
Oh,
time, huh?
yeah.
And what was your father's reaction to that?
I smoked, well, he smoked too.
Oh, okay.
Chewed tobacco, so.
Okay.
But I was wanting to feed the calves after, you know, the cream was separated out, you know, the separator was in the house, and so I was going out to feed the calves, and I'd always roll myself a cigarette when I was out feeding the calves.
Oh.
And I think Ma suspected it. I didn't think she did. But one day when she come out there and I was smoking away, and she says, "I didn't know you smoked. Can't you quit?" I said, "No, I don't think I can quit." "Well, then you might as well smoke in the house."
So how old were you then?
About 14,
Oh.
15, I suppose.
Now you just said rolled yourself a cigarette. I know that there are a lot of younger people that are going to be watching this tape and they're not going to
Oh.
know what you mean by rolling a cigarette.
Well, they sold tobacco then in, you know, like Velvet and Union Leader. For that purpose, it was all soft stuff, you know, no big lumps or hard things in it.
Okay.
So you just rolled it into a paper and rolled it up and lit it up and had a smoke.
Did the paper come with the tobacco or
No, you had to buy that
separately? Okay. How much did the tobacco cost?
Well, the Velvet cost 15 cents a can. Union Leader cost a dime.
Okay, and how many cigarettes could you get out of that?
Oh, well, it would last me all week.
Oh, because you only smoked one at a time?
No, probably 4 or 5 a day.
Okay. So how many years did you smoke?
I smoked for 25 years, and then I chewed for another 25 years.
Was it easy to quit?
Well, it wasn't all that hard.
Was there a certain reason why you chose to quit?
Well, my mouth got so sore. I don't know, I
Okay.
had canker sores all over my mouth. And boy, you know, if I chew a little bit, why it'd burn and smart. Then I got a white spot on my lip. I had that taken off here a few years ago.
Okay.
Oh, last year it was, wasn't it? Last summer. And my lip is still numb from that. They can do wonders because the person can't see it,
Sure.
you know, nowadays. But mostly because my mouth was sore and I didn't think it was good for me anyway, so
Okay.
I quit.
Did your parents have any sayings that you remember that they would use for you on you every once in a while?
No, except Dad, he'd always look out to see what the sun looked like or when it's set and when it rose. And, well, it's going to rain tomorrow, or else he'd say, well, it's going to be a nice day tomorrow.
Okay.
When he went by, and he wrote down every day what the temperature was, and how much it rained, if it rained any at all, and all that stuff. And he kept a record of that.
So he was a real weatherman.
He was a real weatherman.
You know, we children don't always admire our parents when we're growing up, but when we look back, we remember things for which we admire them.
Well-
What do you admire yours for?
Well, for being honest, you know, they were all honest. I mean, everybody was, not only my parents, but all the neighbors. Everybody was. Years ago, you didn't lock the doors in your house. You drove up along the house and left the key in the car, and maybe you wouldn't use it again for a week. Just left the key in the car and didn't think nothing of it. Everybody did. And
Any Anything else that you admire your parents for?
Well, they were good parents.
Did they discipline you?
Oh yeah, but I was a guy that all you had to do was look. And you know, years ago, this is one thing that I think the world has wised up a little bit. No more lickings.
Oh, no, why are you saying that?
Because I got one licking that I know I didn't deserve.
Oh.
And I held it against them.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, and that's not good.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It sounds like your siblings were spanked more than once, though, huh? Your brothers?
Yeah. Some of those guys, they just looked forward to it, I think.
Did your dad do the lickings, or did your mother too, or
Well, both of them. Both did.
was there any
If it
other
was-
kind of discipline besides?
If it was really a bad thing that they done, then Dad did the lick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did he use a razor strap, or?
I can't remember that they really did, but you know, the hand was enough.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But you learned to behave, huh? So you wouldn't get one.
well, I didn't want to get into mischief.
Okay.
I guess, I don't know. I just wasn't that way.
Now, you don't have any sisters?
No,
How many brothers do you have?
4.
And what were their names?
Delbert, Burnell, Merle, and Kenny.
Okay, and are they in that birth order?
Well, that's me, and then Delbert, and then Kenny, and then Burnell, and then Merle.
So you're the oldest.
Burnell, he passed away a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm the oldest.
And the rest are all living.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's one thing that I suppose I should mention. That was, but I was so little that I can't remember if any of the kids was born yet. I can't remember that. But Dad had an uncle, I think it was, living in Phillip, South Dakota.
Okay.
And one day they decided to go down there to visit them. And one of my aunts and uncles went along, but I can't remember who they were, in an old Model T touring car, you know, with the side curtains on. And we got by the Missouri, and there was no bridges. There was just a barge that we put the car on. And then we floated across the river. That was an experience, and I can remember Dad holding me and looking out over the water as we went across.
Wow.
And then we got across the river, and it started to rain. And it was dirt roads all the way. No gravel, no nothing. And that gumbo stuff, you know, man, my tires got about that wide. And we'd get stuck, and Daddy'd back up and give her another run, you know. Finally get through that mud hole, and I don't know if we stayed someplace overnight. I can't remember that, because that's quite a jaunt out there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And your whole family went, or?
Well, just Ma and Dad and me for sure.
Okay.
And it was kind of chilly because the ladies and me sat in the back, and the men sat in the front. And Ma had warmed up some bricks, you know, to put on their feet, you know, to keep them warm. Wrapped them around in towels.
Hmm.
I can remember that.
Hmm.
But
You said you can remember your father holding you at that particular time.
Yeah.
Do you remember your father holding you when you were little?
well, not much. Not much.
What about your mother? Do you remember?
I can't remember that either.
They were both so busy, I suppose.
Yeah, well, one kid at a time.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Being you were the oldest ones, did you ever have to take care of your little brothers?
I was the rockabye
Okay.
guy, yeah.
Okay, so you rocked your little brothers.
I had to rock my little brothers to sleep and feed them
Oh,
sometimes. You know.
okay.
But mother, you know, she breastfed everybody.
Uh-huh.
I know that.
Yeah.
And I started to stutter when I was about 4 or so,
Okay.
something like that. And I remember Ma going to Canastota or Bridgewater, whatever it was, with the old Model T. and seeing this doctor there, you know, they were all quacks those days, I say. But I suppose that's all I knew anyway. And I remember this doctor looking me over, you know, with the stethoscope, and then he left me sitting there on a chair, and he goes to Mom and he says, "I don't think you're going to have your son with you much longer," you know.
Oh.
And I think that kind of changed my life too, you know, because I was always living to die sometimes.
Oh my.
And, you know, doing everything hard and fast.
Huh.
Yeah, making up for it.
Well, you lived intensely.
Yeah.
You were going to live as hard as you can if you're going to live young.
It seemed like it.
Well, you're 75 years old now, so he was all wrong.
Yeah. I fooled him, didn't I?
Did your mother and father kind of baby you then after she heard that? Or?
I think Mother did, but Dad, he didn't, you know. But I suppose Mother did, I don't know. She always took my part, so.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Was that a scary thing for you to hear, that you were...
Well, I don't know. I can't remember really being scared, but I remember feeling to myself anyway that, by gum, I want to do this before I die, and I want to do this before I die, and I want to do that before I die, you know. You know,
Wow,
that
sure.
kind of a mentality, you know.
Hmm.
But it didn't really, it wasn't really scary. I can't say that.
While we're on the stuttering issue, did that, when you went to school, did that affect you at all?
Yeah, Dad, he'd always come, you know, every school years when it started, you know, and he'd always have to tell the teacher, you know. Which, I don't know, those days there was no help, no place to go, you know, so I don't know nowadays why maybe they'd have something to help with, you know. But yeah, that was a no good deal.
I suppose the kids teased you and...
No, they really didn't.
Okay,
Not for that.
okay,
But we had a bully in school like all schools have.
sure.
And this one guy, he'd always pick on me because I was the scrawniest one of the bunch.
Oh, so you were picked out for being scrawny.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Now I can remember one time why he just walked by me and he hit me in the stomach just with his fist, you know, just as hard as he could, and he was strong. And just knocked the wind out of me, you know, and I couldn't breathe. But I got so cotton picking mad, I said, "Did you mean that?" He says, "Yes."
So then what did you do?
Just walked off. What else can you do?
Doesn't sound like you were a fighter.
No, oh,
Or were you?
we fought, yeah, the Racine kids. Clarence Racine and me was just about the same age.
Oh,
And we'd get in, and he had a temper and so did I, and we'd end up wrestling on the gravel road, skinning up our knees and stuff, and going home mad, and the next morning, hi Clarence, how are you doing?"
was he a classmate of yours?
Yeah,
Okay.
he was a grade lower.
So where did you go to school as a child?
Oh, we first started out, I don't remember what in the world they called the school. The first 4 grades in one grade school, and then the second 4 grades in another grade school.
Did you walk to school?
Oh yeah.
How far?
Well, the first time it was, the first school was 2 miles, wasn't it? Sure. 2 miles, and the other one was just a mile.
Okay. What was it like in the winter time to walk to school?
You know, a lot of times you walk backwards. Head your old thing up. And then if it got real bad, Dad would get the horses out and haul you in the old wagon.
What did you have for lunches at school?
Oh, sandwich and an apple maybe, or something. That's about
So
it.
your mom packed the lunches? Did you have special lunch buckets or?
Yeah, well, at first, when we first went to school, all you had was a syrup pail,
Okay.
gallon syrup pail. Otherwise, towards the last one, they got fancier and they got buckets.
Okay.
So, then another thing too, every fall, the old Sears and Roebuck catalog and the Ward's catalog, you know, come in the mail. And Dad and Ma would sit down and order all their clothes from either Sears or Ward's. And a pair of overalls was something like 98 cents. And I bought my first mandolin from the catalog.
Oh, do you remember how much that cost?
I can't remember what it cost, but it was the best darn mandolin that I ever owned.
Oh.
And then it fell and it broke.
Do you still play?
I haven't played for years and years.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember how much a pair of shoes cost when they ordered them?
I can't remember that either, but when I got older and grown, why they cost $5 and some cents, I remember, for a long time.
Mm.
But I suppose $1 or $2, I don't know.
Did you wear your shoes out, or did they get passed on to the next brother?
Oh, you wore them out. I did, anyway.
Okay.
And during school years, well, it was those boots that was in fashion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now,
boots.
you mentioned that you wore knickers. Can you describe those? What were they like?
They were knickers. They just kind of bagged over your knee like that, you know, and then you fasten them over your knee.
Yeah, and you wore socks with them
Socks, sure. Mm-hmm.
that were window pane, you said, or?
Yeah, kind of checkered, you
Checkered?
know, this way.
Okay.
White and brown maybe, or white and something.
Okay. Did your mother sew any of your clothes, or?
No, she never sewed anything. She patched a lot, but she didn't sew
I bet
make
you.
clothes.
Now, in school, did you have a favorite class that you enjoyed, like arithmetic or geography, or what was your favorite?
I really enjoyed all of them, but I was good in spelling, I was good in arithmetic or math, those two. I didn't especially go for geography too much or that kind of thing. Science, I liked that.
Okay. And you went to 8 years of school?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you had a graduation, 8 years, or?
Got my diploma.
Diploma.
And that was it.
Um,
I went to high school for about 3 months and quit.
okay, all right. Do you remember any teacher? Does any teachers stand
Oh,
out in your
yeah.
mind?
I remember 3 of them especially, but I can't remember their names.
Oh. Well, the names aren't so important. What do you remember about them?
I remember my first grade teacher. She was a jewel. I mean, she was a jewel. I remember the brothers once in a while would go to school with me, you know, just to come to see what school was like or just to visit. Mm-hmm. And Kenny, you know, started to talk out loud, you know, and I said, you're not supposed to talk out loud at school. He couldn't figure out why, you know. But she was a good teacher. She was nice and, you know, she was a good teacher. And then, back in the other school, we had a teacher that was just about the same age as the 8th graders. You know, she was just a kid herself. And she let the kids do anything. You know, I suppose the kids liked her for that matter, but there was some, you know, that flunked because they didn't pay attention and didn't learn nothing. One of my brothers was one of them that flunked. Then the next teacher we got, there was stories around that when she got mad at a kid, like she'd go out and the barn, she'd always drive, you know, to school with a horse, and she'd get a tug out of her harness and go and whip the kid with it. That was the stories going around. But she was a good teacher too. You know. Finley, her name was Miss Finley. I remember that.
What were the report cards like?
Mine?
Yeah.
Well,
Did they mark them with A, B's, and C's in those
when
days?
I was first going to school, then it was hundreds or 80s or 90s or whatever.
Okay.
And I remember one time in arithmetic I got 100.
Okay.
Whatever, that was in my first or second grade, I can't
Mm.
remember.
Mm.
And then later on when it was ABCs stuff.
Mm.
But I don't know if I got my report cards left. I don't think I do.
Mm.
No.
When you were going to school in those days, what was it that you wanted to be when you grew up? Did you
Farmer.
think? Okay,
Yeah,
that was your dream,
that was, yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
and that's what you did.
Well, I did it for 30-some years, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What kinds of games did you play with your brothers and sisters when you were little?
When I was little.
Yeah, when you were growing up with your brothers.
Oh, you mean at home?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, whatever come to mind. I can remember one time some of the kids, one of the kids found a nest of eggs, and they were rotten. And so Kenny, he was going to be the batter. He was always the clown in the family, one of the clowns anyway. He was going to be the batter, and one of the other kids was going to be the pitcher, and he was going to hit these eggs. Yeah, the first one that come across the line, he hit it, and it just popped. It was so rotten, it was nothing in it but brown or green powder.
Ooh.
And, oh, they all about died because of the stink. I remember that, and I says, boy. Yeah, and, oh, I don't know, we just played. One of the kids got a goat one time for, you know, the folks bought him a goat, and they made a little harness for him and had it trained. That was one of the younger kids. And it could pull a small wagon, you know, around. And I remember one time one of the kids was out playing with the thing, and the goat got away. Hit the cellar door and tipped the wagon over, and the goat in the wagon went heck and gone, you know. So,
You play a lot of baseball?
yeah, we played baseball, kitten ball they call it too. Years. During the 30s, that's another thing too. During the 30s, you know, there was nothing to do there for a few years. You know, they put the grain in and nothing come up. So in the summertime, when somebody would, you know, you get bored just standing around not doing anything. Somebody would get on the phone and, hey, we're going to have a kitten ball game down in so-and-so's pasture. So we'd all go and play kitten ball in a weekday.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd go and they'd find some big cow pies, you know, and they were the bases. And we'd play kitten ball. And then when I was a kid, younger than that, for then, like all my uncles, and they'd have baseball teams all over the country, you know, this team and that team. One of them was the Creeping Jennies. They were from Montrose. And we'd always go, you know, and see the games. It was all free, you know. And Delbert was driving our car. Then he was just learning to drive, and he was bound and determined. He wanted to drive, and for some reason he wound up in the ditch. And then Dad's brothers come along in another car, and they got out. And you never heard the end of the teasing. They were great for that. Delbert sitting there and crying.
What did your dad say about him going in the ditch?
Well, he had a long patience, but when he got mad, you knew he was mad. But, no, he didn't say nothing. It was tough. Yeah.
What was your house like that you lived in when you were a child, when you were growing up?
No insulation. None of the houses did. That I knew of, anyway. No insulation, so the water pail, you know, you always had to bring water from the well. And that was in the kitchen, which was on the northwest corner of the house. And when it got real cold, well, the water in that pail would freeze. And we'd be sleeping upstairs, and a lot of times, you know, the quilt would be just wiped with frost up on the top of the quilt during the night, you know. People can't believe that, but that's the truth.
Actually had
Yeah,
How many rooms were in the house?
2 upstairs sleeping rooms, and then downstairs there was a bedroom and a dining room and a front room, we used to call it, and the kitchen.
Which was your favorite room?
The place where the table was.
Okay, why did you like where the table
Well,
was?
so you could eat.
Okay.
I don't know, and then us kids, we'd have our tricycles and stuff and we'd go around the table and, you know, during the winter time. And it was a good, it wasn't hardwood, it was, I suppose it was maple floors though, but they were that wide, you know. No rugs on, maybe linoleum. But we'd go around and around that table.
Was it a round table?
Yeah, it was a round
The
table.
big old round
Yeah,
pedestal table?
With big legs on it,
Okay.
yeah.
Could you put leaves in it when you had company?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was one of those that you could stretch out.
Okay.
And I suppose it wound up in the junk pile.
Oh. Oh.
Yeah.
How did you heat your house?
Wood, you know, wood stoves and coal. Yeah.
Were there any fireplaces in it, or what did your mother cook on? A wood stove?
A wood stove, just a like Monarch range, you know. One of those old ones that you had to throw cobs in, or whatever. She was a good cook. She used the baked bread, and oh, I tell you, those women worked.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. Baked bread one day. Monday was always wash day. And then besides getting outside and doing the chores, helping with the chores, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess all women did then.
Yeah, it was hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where was your bathroom?
About 50 yards south of the house.
Was it a 2-seater or more?
Yeah, it was a 2-seater. During the Depression, then we got a WPA toilet.
Oh, now what was that? I don't know what that is.
You don't?
No.
Oh man, they were modern, boy.
Oh.
That had a concrete base on it, so it wouldn't blow away in a little breeze.
Okay.
And it was ventilated better. It is just something for the people to do, you know, so they made them.
But it was still outside.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure was.
Sears and Roebuck catalog.
Huh?
Sears and Roebuck catalog.
Yeah, sure. Sears Roebuck catalog and the slippery pages you just tore out and threw down in the hole.
And that was your toilet paper.
That's right, boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about taking baths? How
Well,
did you do that?
You took one by the cook stove in a wash basin, you know. One of the, once a week, whether you needed it or not.
On Saturday nights, I suppose.
Usually Saturday nights, yeah. Yeah.
And did you each take a turn from the oldest to the youngest, or?
You know, I can't remember too much about what happened then. I don't know. I just don't remember. Yeah, that's something that's kind of slipped my mind. I don't know. It must not have been too big a deal or
No.
something. I don't know.
What about electricity? Did you have electricity in your house?
No, not till I was married already. About 49.
Oh,
I
okay.
think.
So how did you have lights in your home to study by? And
Kerosene lamp.
okay.
And then they got these with the gas lamps, you know. Aladdin lamps too.
With the big chimneys?
Yeah, but with the long chimney. You know, and they were a lot better light. But otherwise, there in the kitchen, they had a lamp up on the wall with a reflector on it. So you could focus right on your newspaper if you wanted to read the newspaper.
Oh.
Otherwise, you got lost in the house.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
How did you keep warm in the winter then?
Well, by wood and coal.
Okay, and then cool in the summer? Your house would get hot in the summer then?
I remember many a time laying with the doors open on the bare floor on the east side, and there was no breeze coming through the house, and just sweating like a butcher, trying to sleep, you know, because, man, it was 150 degrees upstairs, and there was no way that you could sleep up there. Yeah. That's the way it was.
Did you do any camping at all when you were young?
No vacations, no nothing.
Okay.
No, never, just a waste of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve. Tell about Christmas Eve,
Christmas Eve in church.
when they sang the song the Swedes.
Oh yeah, that was when I was a kid. Well, the Swedes always had this one song that they'd always sing just right at midnight, and it was in Swede, you know. And oh man, I tell you, that was a wonderful song. Just kind of a lilting, harmonic song, you know.
I am so glad you're glad or something like
Yeah,
that. Is that
yeah,
the one?
that's the one.
I am so glad
Yeah,
it's Christmas Eve, the night of Jesus' birth.
yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
Okay, that's the Swedish one.
That's what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
How else did you celebrate Christmas when you were little?
Well, the families all got together, you know.
Okay.
Uh,
At your grandpa's or?
no, my grandpa's was no longer in there.
Oh, okay.
that
Oh,
place,
that's
so
right.
It
Okay.
was either in one house or the other.
Of your uncles?
Yeah, we kind of traded around. Yeah. And there was always one of the guys that was Santa Claus, one of the uncles.
Okay.
And usually it was Ray, my dad's brother, you know, from Brandon. And because he had a big tummy.
Oh.
And he'd go outside and we'd all be eating nuts and whatever we did, you know, the kids did. And pretty soon he'd get this Model T started up out there, you know, and roar it away, you know, and then he'd come in, ho, 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 this is Santa Claus coming, you know. And of course the kids all got excited, but I didn't believe it was Santa Claus. I never did believe in Santa Claus.
Uh-oh.
You know, that was just a hoax as far as I was concerned. And we each get a little top, maybe it would cost 25 cents or whatever, and we were just as happy as these people that get $150 toys now.
Sure.
You know.
Did you hang stockings?
No.
Didn't do that
Didn't do
tradition.
that, no. No, but we had a Christmas tree with candles on, and now thinking about it, I kind of shudder a little bit. The whole tree would be lit with candles. Oof.
Just one time they'd light the candles?
Yeah.
But you'd go and chop the tree down the day before Christmas,
I
or?
think they bought the tree. I
Oh,
don't know.
okay.
I'm not sure where they got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kinds of decorations did they put on besides the candles?
Well, popcorn strung, you know, and on a string and things like that.
Did you like to help decorate the tree?
I never did much of that. It was either Ma or somebody, one of the grown-ups doing it. Yeah.
How did you protect yourself in case of fire if the candles
Never
start?
thought of it.
So there was no bucket of water there ready
No.
to get thrown on?
No, nothing.
Hmm.
You just run like heck. I suppose. I don't know.
Can you remember getting anything else for Christmas besides a top?
Well, when I was a little kid, you know, then it was little cars if you run or top or something. The tops were the favorites, though, you know, because they make a noise, make a whistling noise, you know, some of the fancy ones. as we grew older, I suppose we got clothes. I
Mhm.
can't remember.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember any special Christmas foods that your mother would prepare?
Well, amongst the Norwegians, it was always lutefisk.
Oh, no, that's a good thing to describe, what
Never
lutefisk
failed.
is.
Well, don't you know what lutefisk
Well,
is?
I know what it is, but see, 50 years down the road, people might not know this.
Well, as I know it, it's codfish treated with lye. That's what it is. And the reason why they did that, because if they didn't do it that way, it would rot.
Okay.
That's a fact. That's why they did that. You know, there's a lot of foods, you know, that they had years ago that now we think, oh, that's horrible. But they did it that way because it would spoil.
Sure. Yeah.
And that was lutefisk. And the fish by itself didn't taste nothing, you know, so they had to bury it in butter, melted butter, and lefse too.
Okay.
That was good.
Lutefisk and lefse.
Yeah.
Yulakaka, did you have any of Yulakaka or
No.
Krumkaka?
Oh yeah.
Rumagaras or whatever?
No. I don't think so.
Lots of meats for
yeah,
Christmas?
meat, you know, because they were farmers, you know, and they'd always have meat too, besides the lutefisk. But yeah, mashed potatoes, and I always liked Christmas because we got mashed potatoes.
Oh, that was special for you?
Oh, that was special for me, yeah. Yeah. Because, you know, at home they just boil the potatoes and roll it on your plate, and you'd have to mash it yourself.
Okay.
But mashed potatoes, that was a treat.
Ah,
At least for me, it was a treat.
sure.
Yeah.
How did you celebrate Thanksgiving when you were young?
Oh, that was something. Everybody went to church.
Okay.
All the neighborhood went to church and brought a pot or something to pass, you know. And so we'd have all the goodies in church and have a big meal in church and then have a program.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that was special.
Mm.
Yeah.
What church did you go to when you were young?
Lutheran,
Okay.
Augustana Lutheran.
Okay. And that's where you went for your programs?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were there any special programs where the kids said recitations and pieces and sang songs, or?
Well, for Christmas, you know, the Christmas program was that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about Halloween? Did you do any escapades on Halloween?
Once.
Uh-oh. Okay, it's confession time here now.
Oh man. Well, these two brothers, I was kind of friends with them. I won't even say who they are because I think they're both dead now.
Oh, well, then you're safe.
Yeah. Orville Anderson and his brother, Orville and Donald Anderson. Well, I think it was from their folks, you know, from his dad. His dad lost his wife during the first flu outbreak.
Hmm.
So he was a bachelor all his life and raised these two boys and a girl. And they were neighbors with a guy by the name of Carl Anderson. And some way or another, they just kind of laughed at him and poked fun at him. And so there's one Halloween night where I was with them two guys and says, let's go to Carl Anderson's. And, well, what shall we do now there, you know? Well, we'll think of something when we get there. So we parked the car on the road and had to walk across a big pasture kind of thing, and it had a kind of a low place in it. And I don't know if you know what those, what did we call them? Oh, the seeds are round, horseshoe shaped like that, and then it's got a little sticker on this end and a little sticker on this end. Mm. And you walk through that stuff and you get your pants leg just loaded with them. We walked across this kind of a low place, and it was loaded with those things. And so we got there, and man, the moon was out so bright, you know, just like daylight almost. And it was probably 10:30, 11 o'clock, and one of the guys says, well, there ain't no light in the house. No, I guess there isn't. And we looked around for something to do, and finally one of the guys says, well, here's his buggy. Let's just dismantle that thing and haul it up on top of the barn. Man, I never worked so hard in all my life, taking the thing apart, you know, taking all the wheels off and lugging that thing up on top of the, you know, the barn peak, and then put the thing together up there. So when you woke up, there it was. He doesn't know that I did that.
Uh-oh. So no, did you get caught?
No, we didn't get caught.
So you never had to pay for that prank?
Never, and he never said nothing. I don't know if he knew.
But he didn't, if he did, he didn't go to your parents or anything?
No, he never said a word to anybody.
Wow. So how old were you when you did this?
I suppose 17, 16, 17.
Oh, okay.
Old enough to know better.
What about the 4th of July? That's always been kind of a special day.
I'll have to tell you another
okay.
prank about Halloween that somebody else did to me.
Oh, okay.
Picking corn. And the wagons was north of the trees there. I don't know if he was home yet then or not. Can't remember.
I don't remember.
Then the wagons were all lined up there, you know, and I had one wagon that was a lift in the back. You open it up like that, you know, and the corn would run out. And then I had two silage wagons, you know. Well, I hooked onto the first one, you know, the flare box they call it, you know. Hooked onto that and went out and picked the load and picked the others full and went home at noon, you know, and hooked onto the flare box and drove it in the hoist and hoisted her up and come back there. Well, where in the heck is the lift? And it was in the front.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had lifted up and turned the thing around backwards. And I never looked, you know. So that was a prank, you know, and I looked at it and I thought to myself, I just laughed. I said, I wonder who in the world done that. Never did find out.
Oh, you're getting your just dues after
Yeah.
doing the prank when you were 17.
That's right. I don't know who it was, so I had to dig and scratch and dig that all out by hand.
Uh-oh. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, what about the 4th of July when you were young? How did you celebrate that?
The uncles got together and bought a bunch of fireworks.
Oh.
And then we'd all have a potluck again, you know. And then as I grew older, then, you know, one of my friends or some of my friends and I would get together and buy a bunch of firecrackers and go out in the country or else in the town. They didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Those days, it isn't like now.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot them off and we thought we had fun.
Do you know how much they cost and all?
We could buy a whole big bunch for $5.
Wow. Yeah. Well, tomorrow is Easter Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
How did you celebrate Easter when you were a young boy?
Well, we all went to church, you know, that was the center of everything that went on. And I can remember yet, I thought anyway, that the main reason why people went to church on Easter is to see all the pretty hats and new clothes that people bought for Easter Sunday.
Okay.
That was my idea of Easter.
Okay.
Yeah.
In your family, did you do anything like decorate eggs or?
Not really. No. Mom wasn't, you know, that way. She didn't do that.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Okay.
You know.
What about Valentine's? Did you make Valentine's and send to anybody when you were?
I suppose in school we did. I I can't remember.
Yeah.
Must not been nothing too spectacular
Yeah,
because
so you don't remember?
I think we exchanged Valentines or something
Mhm.
in school. That's what we did.
Any childhood birthday that you remember?
I remember my 10th like it was yesterday.
Oh, we better hear about that.
Well, Mom must have invited a whole bunch of the kids over, and I can remember playing outside. It was 4th of April, you know, and it was nice that day,
Mm.
and we played outside.
Mm.
Yeah. That's about all I can recall, but certain aspects of it I can, you know, remember just like it was yesterday.
Mm.
Yeah.
Any of the names of the kids that were there?
Oh, the Rosines were there. Of course, there was 5 or 6 of those, I guess.
Oh.
One, 2 girls, I guess, and 4 boys. Yeah. And jeepers, I don't remember who else was there.
Mm.
Can't remember that.
Did she make you a special birthday cake?
I don't remember that either. All I know that I was really excited, you know, because, you know, kids were coming over. That's what I remember
Yeah.
most.
Huh.
I suppose there was a birthday cake she had.
Yeah. What about a favorite pet?
Favorite pet. Well, the old dog I think was my favorite. I was not a guy like my brothers. They loved horses, and I just hated the things. Because I'd ride to school on a horse, you know, and the thing would stumble and fall and throw me on the gravel, and I just didn't like horses.
Okay.
I just loved tractors. Dad thrashed, you know, and he had a Rumley, single cylinder Rumley.
Mm-hmm.
Pop, pop. And that was my favorite toy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the old dog was your favorite?
Yeah, the old family dog.
This
Fido
old
is what we call
Fido.
it.
I was
Yeah.
going to ask what his name
Yeah,
was.
it was Fido, and she lived to be a ripe old age. I can remember her laying around the house and getting so old she couldn't hardly walk.
Huh.
But she was one that watched the pigs if they ever got out. Poor pig.
Oh.
She got so rough with them, you know, that man, she'd grab them, you know, by the ham, you know, and a lot of times what, she'd rip them out, you know, even.
Hmm.
But boy, if a pig got out, I don't know why, that just got her going.
Hmm.
And then the cows too. Sometimes if a cow didn't do what she thought the cow should do, she'd get mad so quick, you know, this dog would grab the cow by the tail. And the cow would swing around and the dog would hang on to that tail, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah,
What other animals did you have on your farm?
she was a good dog. Oh, I don't know. Horses and cows, I guess. Yes,
And pigs? And
pigs.
did you have chickens and turkeys
Oh,
or anything like that?
Chickens and sheep for a
Oh,
while.
sheep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I hated those things.
Was there a special reason?
They were just into everything.
Hmm.
And it was always, bleh, bleh. I couldn't stand them.
Oh.
But the goats, they were kind of cute. They were Kennies, I think.
Okay.
But they would play games, you know. They'd run to beat the band and up on top of the hood of the car and then up on the roof, you know, up on the top of the car and stand there and stomp.
Hmm.
And then if you hollered at them, then they'd jump down.
Hmm.
But they were kind of cute. But as far as animals, cats, we had a bunch of cats all the time.
Sure.
I like cats and dogs.
What about a favorite toy? Is there some toy that you remember that you played with a lot, more than?
Ice skates,
Oh, okay.
that was kind of my favorite. That was during one of the 30s when it rained in the fall of the year and all the sloughs didn't have any vegetation in them at all. And it rained and all the sloughs filled up.
Mm.
So everybody in the country bought skates.
Mm.
And so we got skates for Christmas. And we learned to skate, you know. The slough was about half a mile away from the house.
Mm.
We'd build bonfires out in the middle of the ice and do all kinds of things. And then we'd get the old Model A Ford out there with a rope and hang on to the back end. Go to beat the band and then whip the old Ford around and you'd swing around. It was kind of fun. Probably dangerous too.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were the skates like what they have today?
Huh?
What were the skates like what they have today, or?
Oh, I don't know what they have today.
Hmm.
I don't know. These were speed skates, I guess you'd call them.
Mhm. And they fit. They were a separate shoe.
No,
Or
were
they
just,
attached to your.
just the clamp-ons.
Okay, attached to your shoe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Hmm. So that's something you did in the wintertime.
Yeah, it was a thin bladed skate
Okay.
with a little hollow.
Roller skating.
Huh? Oh yeah, we used to roller skate. That was one thing that we did. The Luther League, you know.
Okay.
This guy trucked, and he lived just across the street from the road from the church, and he'd always haul us kids to roller skating parties.
Hmm. Hmm.
We went a lot of times down here to this, what do they call this? It's no longer there anymore. Went there, Twin Lakes we went, and the Sioux Falls a few times. Not Sioux Falls, Del Rapids. There was a place where they had a roller skating rink in it. And we did a lot of roller skating.
And don't forget your main thing, your music.
Music, you enjoyed playing the mandolin. How old were you when you started playing that?
Well, that was a funny thing. One Christmas, our dad says, "What do you want for Christmas?" Delbert, he says, "I want a guitar." Kenny says, "Well, I'd like a mandolin." And I said, "Well, I don't know, maybe a mouth organ." So I got my mouth organ. And Kenny got his mandolin. It was just a cheapie, you know. And Delbert got a guitar. Kenny couldn't make nothing out of that mandolin. I could play the mouth organ pretty good, you know. And finally one day I started plinking away with this mandolin, and I got a tune out of it. And I started plinking away some more, and by golly, I could play it.
Hmm.
And so then, I suppose Dad paid for it, but I went to Montgomery Ward's, I suppose it was, and looked in the catalog and got this one mandolin. It wasn't the cheapest one. It was probably about a $5.98 one. I don't know. And I bought that, and that was a good one.
Hmm.
That was a good one. And then this friend of mine, he sang and played the guitar. And we knew about 50, 60 songs, you know, by heart. Went all over the country and played and sang
Wow.
for people.
How old were you then?
Oh, 17, 18.
Hmm.
Have your shoes on when you went?
Oh, I don't want to even talk about that. We were supposed to play for a farmers union meeting there at the Salem auditorium there, and you were just maybe a little kid then. And I was in a hurry. Opened the closet door, and I had one brown pair and one black pair of shoes in there, you know. Grabbed the pair and slipped them on, and yep, they fit. And then we were playing away, and I happened to look down, and there I had one brown one and one black one on. Gee whiz, I was embarrassed. And the guy says, "Well, I didn't notice it before. If you wouldn't have said nothing,
That's
I
right.
sure wouldn't have noticed it." But that was... And then another time we were doing the same thing, and this one guy that used to be with us guys had a disease of the muscles, you
Mm.
know, starting out on him. It wasn't muscular sclerosis, I guess. It was something like it anyway. And oh, we were up on the stage getting things ready, you know, and he kind of stumbled, you know, and pretty near fell down. And I joked with him. I says, "What in the world have you been drinking?" And he was a staunch Baptist, so I knew he wasn't drinking anything, you know. But he just looked at me and smiled, and that's all he did, and he just went on. And afterwards, somebody says, did you know that he had muscular dystrophy, I think it was. I said, no, I didn't know that, and you know, that made me feel about that high.
Oh.
Yeah, that was kind of sad. But.
Mm.
And he died in about a year and a half or 2 years. He was gone.
How did you get your mail at your farm?
With the mailman,
Okay.
Mr. Dale. I still remember the guy.
Yeah. And do you remember how much a postage stamp was?
That was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
His name was Mr. Dale.
Yeah.
As far as our mailman that we had, I don't remember what his name was.
Okay. But when you were a kid, do you remember how much it cost to send a letter?
About 2 or 3 cents.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about what was on the radio to listen to at that time?
Oh man, when I was growing up, we got our first radio probably in about 1936 or 37.
Okay.
Something like that. And you could get WLS, Chicago, WCCO, Minneapolis. What's that one in Nashville? We got that. And then we got one from Utah. I can't remember what the call letters were of that one. And then we got a Mexican station that was just across the border from El Paso, Texas. Sioux Falls wasn't even on the air. Yankton was, so, but there was nothing in Sioux Falls yet. And boy, I'll tell you, it was good music, especially that one, you know, from Texas. And Nashville was good. But that would kind of fade away once in a while. You'd have good music and then it would kind of fade away. Yeah.
Was there a favorite radio show that you listened to as a family, or?
Well, a little bit later on, then they had, you know, I'm so poor with names, you know. I don't know. I can remember Amos and Andy, you know,
Okay.
real well.
Okay.
And the Mad Russian, you know, they had these programs, and then they had some side kicks in with it. And one show had a segment in it. He was kind of, you know, he'd make jokes, but he was called a Mad Russian. And this was before the war, you know. And he'd always come on with this crazy laugh, and he'd always say, "Peoples are, let's see, monkeys are the craziest people." He'd always say. That was his first lingo. And then he'd go on and tell stories. And he was the Mad Russian. And George Burns and Gracie Allen.
Okay.
Yeah, they were always good. And then that guy that always played the violin, what in the world was his name?
Jack Benny?
Jack Benny, yeah, Jack Benny, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What could you buy for a penny when you were little?
For a penny.
Yeah, or a nickel? Anything?
Oh, a nickel, yeah. Ice cream cone, bottle of pop. When I got a little bit older, and got a little more money in my pocket, us boys would go to town, go to Salem, and buy a pint of ice cream and sit in the car and eat it. A pint each.
A pint each?
That's right.
Oh, you were,
You could buy it by the pint then.
okay, and how much would that cost,
Oh,
you
I
think?
don't remember.
Huh.
Probably quarter, I don't know.
What about a chocolate bar? How much would that cost?
A nickel.
Nickel?
Yeah. All candy bars were a nickel, and all ice cream was a nickel, except if you got 2 dips, then it was a dime.
Mm.
And the pop bottles were all recycled. You didn't dare throw away a bottle, the bottle. And milk was always in glass bottles.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we're such a throw-away people that you buy stuff to throw it away. That's why our dumps get full.
Mm-hmm.
And you could burn stuff then too,
Mm-hmm.
newspapers and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Do you know any wages, what people were earning when you were young?
Oh yeah, $1 a day was a good wage.
Mm.
I worked one summer for 50 cents a day,
Mm.
and I got $35 in my pocket, and boy, I thought I had lots of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a girlfriend, I suppose I was about 17, 18, come to the fair here, and paid my way into the fair, me and my girlfriend, and threw a lot of balls at bottles, I was a pitcher when I was young.
Oh, okay.
So I could hit those bottles, and make them fly. You had to hit them just right. And so we got big rabbits and, oh man, all kinds of stuff that we hauled home. And we ate and went to the grandstand, and I spent $5. That's when I was about 17.
Mm. Well, now you can't even get into the fair for $5.
No, you can't. No.
Mm.
Yeah.
I have just a couple more questions about your childhood. One is, how did your family spend Sunday?
At home, you didn't go into the field, even if the grain was ripe, you stayed home.
Okay.
And a lot of times, you'd invite somebody over, or else you were going someplace else to eat.
After church.
After
Yeah, you
church.
went to church every Sunday.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Do you remember any of the pastors that you enjoyed?
Yeah. The first one that I can remember was a man by the name of Pastor Ander. And this was his second trip, and he had been there before and then went someplace else and then come back. He was kind of in his retirement. And, those old pastors had those long black robes, hanging down, and then they had the collar, that was sticking out, just about this far. And when he talked about those things, I can remember that just like. And once a month, why the service had to be in Swede.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so us kids could have a nap during that. And then we got a man by the name of, I have it on the tip of my tongue, Gustafson. And he was more inclined to worry about money than most all of them, And the kids, the Sunday school kids, would always bring a penny for the collection. And he was thinking that wasn't enough. So one Sunday morning he gets up and he says, "Now you kids," he says, "leave the Indian head at home." He says, "Bring the buffalo."
Oh.
I can remember that just like it was yesterday. Yeah, leave the Indian head at home and bring the buffalo.
It sounded like you went to Sunday school, too?
Oh, sure.
What kinds of things did you do in Sunday school?
Well, we didn't color. Oh, we had, I can't remember too much of what we did, but we had to learn stuff and
You memorized scripture?
memorize things, sure.
Did you go to confirmation?
Mm-hmm.
What was confirmation like?
I just went 1 year, you know,
Okay.
it was three miles to church, and I had to drive a horse, drive a buggy or whatever down there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't drive yet. So they just had confirmation 1 year, or, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's all. Now I think they have it for 2 or 3 years.
But your confirmation was in English?
Oh, yeah. Mhm. And we had that bully in my class, too.
Oh, uh-oh.
Yep.
Will the pastor keep him in line?
Christensen, no. Nobody could keep him in line. And one day, this is the gospel truth, we were sitting there. What we were doing, I don't remember that, but anyway, he swore, you know, Jesus Christ, God Almighty, says like that, you know, the preacher said, what was that? He says, cheese and crackers, God Almighty. I mean, that's, nothing in this life was serious as far as that guy was concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And he wound up, he married a nice girl, they say. I didn't really know her. And had a nice family and all that stuff. And he got to be an alcoholic, you know, and drank himself to death, and he died in his 40s.
Wow. Hmm.
Yeah.
Was there an unpardonable sin in your home? Was there something that, you know, like some families, the unpardonable sin was to play cards on Sunday and drink?
Oh, yeah.
So what were your unpardonable sins?
Playing cards with those evil faces on.
Oh.
You could play rook, but you couldn't play with the other cards.
Okay.
And drinking was something that was, you did that when nobody was looking.
Oh.
And you couldn't dance either.
Oh.
No. And I was one of those guys that was so conscientious about everything, you know, and so I didn't learn to dance, and now I kick myself 140 times because I didn't learn.
Mm.
I know music and everything else, and it gets into my bones, but I cannot dance.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's just, she can dance, Marie
Hmm.
can dance. Oh, you used to. You used to dance real good.
Huh.
But I tried it a couple times, and boy, I had seven left feet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
What about medicine, and what if you got a
Oh.
toothache? What would happen when you had a toothache?
Well, if it got bad enough, Dad would take out a snooze box and put a pinch of snooze on it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Until, you know, you could go to town and get it fixed.
And so who pulled the tooth out? A dentist or somebody else?
Dentist,
Then how did he do that?
well, he'd give you a shot,
Oh.
and you scream like bloody murder. I
Hmm.
remember doing that.
Hmm.
And the doctor that we had, old Doc Hoyne, this is something too that's really good, you know, younger generation won't believe. The old doc, up until I was probably 21, 22 years old, he was there in Salem yet, and you'd go if you had a cold or something like that, you know, and he'd listen to you. Then he'd whistle a little bit, and he'd go, he had a whole bunch of drawers up on top, and he'd open up one of them and look around, and he'd have jars of pills, you know, in there. Oh, yeah, he'd pull one down and shake out probably a dozen or so, and put in a little square box. And, well, you take these 3 times a day until they're gone or something. And, well, how much? Oh, I don't know. He put his hands in his pocket. 50 cents.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's the way the doctoring was.
Hmm.
And you seem to live through it too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you have any childhood illnesses that you remember?
I know. We had the flu that one year. Everybody had the flu.
The 1920 flu?
No, it wasn't.
No.
No, this is probably 34 or so.
Mm.
33, 34. Everybody had the flu. The whole family.
Mm.
Except Mom. By gum, anyway, it didn't matter what come along, she wouldn't get it.
Wow.
she'd be the only one that wouldn't get it. And Dad one day had, I don't know, he called it quinsy. I don't know just what it is. It's some infection in your tonsils. But anyway, this one year we had the flu, all of us kids. Poor Ma, she worked and worked and worked. It was during the winter, you know, when it was cold. And finally we got over it, but I didn't quite feel good, but I didn't have the flu, so we went back to school, all of us. And one day in school I got such pleurisy in my side I couldn't hardly breathe. And Dad, I guess he must have come and got us, I suppose. And I was home for 6 weeks because I just couldn't shake it, whatever it was. They didn't have penicillin or any of those magical drugs then.
Did you have a phone in your school?
No, but this bachelor lived just like across the road, you know, from us. We'd always have to walk there to get water and everything. He enjoyed seeing the teachers. This old bachelor did, you know, he was a bachelor farmer. And he'd do anything. He was a good, I can't remember now what his name was, but he was a man of few words. And he did help out a lot. Like when it was really, really cold, well, he'd walk across there and get the fire started early in the morning so the building would be warm, you know, when the teacher come. And he didn't have to do that, but he was just a good-hearted old guy. And he kind of liked the girl, or liked the teachers, you know. He was an old bachelor, but he never did anything bad or anything like that. You know, he was just a nice old guy. Yeah.
Well, we've talked a little bit about your school and what you enjoyed in school, but we know that life experience is just as important to teacher. Can you think of anything that life has taught you that you would like to pass on here to your grandchildren and great-grandchildren?
Well,
Honestly, you would never take a penny from anybody.
well, no, that's right. I did something when I was first married that, thinking back, you know, it was kind of a bad deal. But anyway, this Mormon guy, you know, feed guy, he'd always come around and pester me, you know, to sell me feed. And I am not sure, but I think his son lives right over down here, because there was a Kellenberger that was a feed man down there too, selling Mormon feeds. And I like this guy. He's a nice fellow, you know, and we're friends. But I think it must have been his dad, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know the man's name. Anyway, he says he had premiums, you know, that if you bought so many tons of feed, you'd get this and get that. And so they had a little pressure cooker with just a gallon, you know, pressure cooker. And he says, you can have this one if you buy so many tons of feed, but you don't have to take it all right now. So I says, okay. So I took some feed and took the pressure cooker. And we weren't made of money, you know, either, you know. And after about the second time that he come, or about the third time, I says, I'm sorry, I says, I can't buy any more of your feed. It's just too darn high price. And I hadn't bought enough feed, you know, to pay for this pressure cooker. Well, he was the one that was in the doghouse, you might say, because he let me have it before I bought all the feed, you know. But I kind of left him holding the bag there. And for the rest of my life, I've always thought of that, you know, that was cheating. It was.
Well, honesty is a very important value for you.
It is, yeah. Yeah, yeah. And if I knew now, if it was Floyd's dad, I don't know, I'd approach him, but I don't know who the man was. Still don't know.
Who taught you how to drive?
I guess I got behind the wheel and just went.
Did you need a driver's license to drive when you first started out?
No.
When did you finally have to start having driver's license?
Boy, I don't know. I don't know. It must have been in the 50s, I suppose. Somewhere in there. No, if you could steer down between the telephone poles, well, you could drive a car
Okay.
those days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I can't remember. I remember one time learning to smoke when I was driving then. And I was smoking already, you know, but the folks didn't know it. So I suppose I was about 14, I don't know. I was driving the Model, it was a Model A Ford then, and I was going west of the house, west of the place there, going someplace. And I decided that I was going to have a smoke, so I put a cigarette in my mouth and scratched the match and was looking at it and trying to hit my cigarette, and I felt the car going down in the ditch.
Uh-oh.
Boy, I tell you, and it was a steep ditch, man, it was sharp. And whoop, I went down into the ditch, and I never stopped. I drove the thing until there was a little more of a, less of an incline, and then I drove it back out and went on my way.
So what kinds of cars have you had?
Up until I moved to here, and it was all Fords.
Oh.
Yep, here, I don't know, had all kinds of cars.
Was that a reason? Was there a reason why you liked the Fords?
Well, McCormick Brothers in Salem, there was one of my friends, and they were good, honest people.
Okay.
Every time I went to town, why I'd always have to stop in there to chew the fat a little bit. You know how farmers are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who was
What?
your hero when you were growing up and when you were a teenager?
Lindbergh.
Oh.
Yeah,
What?
Charles Lindbergh.
Charles. For what?
Well, because he was a flyer and he flew across the Atlantic. He was always my hero. Oh, I had big dreams when I was a kid. I was going to be an aviator, boy.
Oh, okay.
But you know how dreams are. Yeah.
Are you still interested in planes?
Yeah, kind of, but not that interested. I mean, I'm interested in them, all right, you know, but now they're so fancy now that I had one last ride here with Isaiah here about 5 years ago, I suppose it was, down here. They had an air show, and there was a guy taking up passengers, and we went up for a ride. And I was sitting in the front, you know, with the pilot, and I think I could fly a plane if I really had to, just by watching these guys.
No.
But anyway, I didn't realize that. I realized it, but I had my feet down in down where the pedals are, you know. And I don't know what those pedals are, because when he pulled the wheel back to land, why those pedals come out and hit my feet. You know, just when he was ready to touch, you know, then they lift the nose and then touch down. And those things hit my feet. He kind of looked over at me, and I didn't say nothing, and he didn't say nothing. And it was blowing to beat the band, but the old plane kind of hit one wheel and then the other one, and so maybe I was at fault there. I don't know. Yeah.
We're done?
Yeah, lots of questions.
Yeah, I'm done too. So